welcome to Expat Kingdom. This is Lane Livingston, and today I'm going to be speaking to Rebeca Salem, which has a very interesting story because she's actually originally from Ecuador and as a child moved to the States, lived the majority of her life in the States, and has since moved back to Ecuador and has been living in Salinas for the last 5 months. So basically, I just thought we'd go ahead and get started and start talking about that. And so, welcome to the show. And also, I guess the big question I've got is, since you lived in the States for so long or so much of your life, what really inspired you to want to move back to Ecuador?
My professional life has been in the human resources area, and in the States, I'm a corporate trainer. Most of my training has been delivered to Spanish-speaking, non-English speaking personnel, which is usually production, assembly, that sort of thing. And so that's one of the reasons that I came back is that I've had a desire to do something with that level, first level, um, non-educated worker. And I've seen what has happened in the United States with those people, where a company will come in and treat them well and reward them, and their self-esteem increases and their whole life changes. And so I see a huge need for that here, especially now that we have so much tourism and people from other countries that we need a workforce that can really have the self-esteem to do the job and to do it well and to change their lives, basically.
Yeah, okay. That's really good. So, with I guess with making that move, why did you choose Salinas out of everywhere that Ecuador, all the amazing places Ecuador has to offer?
I'm from Guayaquil, and so I spent the majority of my vacations in Salinas. I have beautiful memories. I was in Ecuador from 1994 to 2000 with a franchise for the Heavy Leadership Center, the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and I came to Salinas every single weekend. And I absolutely love this city. I have wonderful childhood memories and also memories um, from when I had my business here
Hmm.
15 years ago.
So Guayaquil, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry, Salinas is typically the vacation spot for a lot of people from Guayaquil. Is that
Yes, it is.
correct? So
Yes, it is.
that's what you're probably referring to as a child, having those
Yes.
memories. You guys would vacation over there.
Yep. Yes.
Gotcha. That's great. So did you consider anywhere else other than Salinas, or you just decided you knew you were going to Salinas?
I I knew that I was coming to Salinas. Now that I'm here, I am planning to spend a few months in Cuenca, Ambato, and all the other areas. Since what I like to do is something that I like to do nationwide, so I'm going to spend as much time as I need to in each place to create trainers, to facilitate the workshops that I wanted to deliver.
Yeah.
So, and also see it again because it's almost like coming to a new country 15 years later. This is just amazing what I'm seeing in terms of progress.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. That's Stephen Covey. Is that right?
Covey, Stephen Covey.
Are you
Yes.
are you still doing that work?
I haven't done, I'm licensed to teach their materials because I'm certified, but I haven't worked for them since 2000.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm now a career coach for Lehigh Harrison, so kind of my career took a different turn.
Okay.
Uh,
So are you, as a career coach, you're working independently, or are you working for somebody else?
I work for Lehigh Harrison, but I'm an independent consultant. So I basically go and do outplacement training wherever a company's downsizing or closing their doors or moving their factory somewhere,
Gotcha.
uh, and do large projects in Spanish and English.
Oh, great. Okay, I mean, that's nice that you've got the fluency in both, and I'm sure that's given you a lot of opportunities regarding the career in that capacity. So that's really good.
It really is. It's literally life changing. Some of the opportunities that I've had, I would have never had without the language, and I just kind of opened the door.
Yeah, that's really good. So, was making that transition from the United States to Ecuador difficult when it comes to the career aspect of it, or was it pretty fluid for you because of other connections and contacts that you already had?
So when I moved in 1994, my goal was to start this franchise with the Covey Leadership Center, but it took about a year to close it all up and lock it all up. And so I worked for Deloitte. I used to be an executive search recruiter, so it was seamless. Literally got a job 2 weeks after I was in Guayaquil. because I contacted Deloitte. I said, I'm a recruiter, so we need somebody to do search, to put together a search um, piece of the business, and that was me. And
Wow,
so,
that's great.
literally seamless. It's a little bit different now. I'm semi-retired, so I'm not really knocking on the doors to find a job. I want to do this. I have a specific project in mind. But again, since I've been here, I'm teaching Spanish to the expats and English to some of volunteers through the Red Cross, um, to the community that needs to learn English to serve the expats. And so and again, it started immediately. It started
Wow,
almost immediately.
that's
So
great.
I've always felt very welcome back in Ecuador.
Yeah, that's good. So as far as the teaching that you're doing, is that all local in Salinas?
Right now it is, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, good. So we can talk about that a little bit later too. If there's an opportunity, if people in Salinas, expats in Salinas, are looking for help with their Spanish and all that, I'm sure that's something that you'd be able to help them with. So that's really good.
Excellent.
So when it comes to well, you mentioned Ambato. I was just going to say a little side note. My wife's family is actually originally from Ambato. So
Right.
are
Yes.
you planning to travel there just for vacation, or just are you thinking to actually take little mini, like maybe periods of time that you'd actually be staying in each of these cities?
Periods of time. It's actually a large expat community in Ambato as well, and those are the
Really?
cities that I'm targeting. It's Cuenca, Ambato, Guayaquil, and Quito
Okay.
that are the largest. But Ambato's become, Baños,
Oh, sure.
large expat
Yeah, I've
city
been to
there.
Banos. Loved it. Thought it was
It's
fantastic.
off, yes.
Yeah. And Cuenca, I've not actually yet made it to, but I've spoken to a lot of expats in Cuenca, and that's clearly the hot spot
It is.
for expats right now. This is the first time I've heard that about Ambato as well, though. So that'll be interesting. I'd love to get somebody on the show, maybe from Ambato as well. Um, so that's really good. So when it comes to making that, so it sounds like then you made the choice that you wanted to move to Ecuador. It wasn't that your career brought you down. You intentionally, you knew you wanted to get back to your homeland.
I've been planning this for 2 years now. As house placement is cyclical, and of course there's not that much outsourcing anymore, so the work was less and less, which is awesome because I don't really like seeing people lose your jobs. But and I've been steadily just for the last 2 years planning this, just waiting to be the right age to be able to retire and then make this move. But
Yeah,
it's been in the works for a couple of years.
that's great. So has it met your expectations so far? The first 5 months in Salinas, do you feel like it's met all your expectations as far as what you were hoping for?
It has actually exceeded my expectations. I never expected the expat community in Salinas is the second largest next to Cuenca,
Hmm.
and nobody has an exact number, but it's impressive because I'm meeting them. I just came back from Vallenita, and I met with 20 lovely ladies from Canada, from South Africa, one of them from a lot of them from the United States. So it's impressive what has happened here.
Wow, that's really
Yeah,
great.
it totally exceeded my expectations. I wanted that combination of those women my age that I can also share my passion for giving back and for having a third act in life where I'm active, healthy, and they certainly need that. I just came away from that meeting understanding that it's a mutual, it's going to be good for them as well. And then how did the other activity with the locals to support the growth of the tourism here?
Very nice. So I don't want to just skip over that because I can't relate to that. Clearly,
Of
so
course.
I don't. But
I don't
I
make
don't. I don't want to just skip over that either, simply because maybe I can't relate to it because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in similar situations and circumstances as you and would like to hear a little bit more about that. So when you refer to the third act of life and what your focus is on that, can you expand on that a little bit for me, just to kind of maybe dig in just a little bit more so people understand exactly what that is?
So I think that my generation really has been given an extra 20 years after retirement, which was never the case before. We're healthier. Most of us want to stay active for many reasons, including financial reasons, because things are the way they were as far as retirement is concerned. So, in giving back is what keeps people healthy mentally and physically and emotionally, which is part of the 7 habits, and it's something I live by.
Hmm.
And so I think there's a great opportunity here. The people that I met really want to do something. They don't know what to do. but they all want to do something. They're contributing, they're volunteering the Red Cross, they're doing whatever they can to contribute, but there are actually things that we can do. For instance, I'm very interested in health and nutrition, and so I'm distributing coconut oil and pure honey from Ecuador and products made in Ecuador, and the expat community is my largest client because they're also looking to be healthy in this part of this third act of life, and also maybe do something meaningful.
Yeah.
I can see it just from the number of them that have actually are volunteering at the Red Cross for something meaningful to do.
That's
So,
great.
like I said, it's exceeded my expectations. It's like almost like better than I ever imagined it.
That's really good. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are hearing this and they say, yeah, absolutely, I understand exactly what she's referring to. This makes sense to me, and they're gonna want to get involved in something like that as well. So that's really good. Do you have any kind of a website or anything like that where people can learn more about that?
I haven't put it together yet. I have two websites that I'm going to be creating. One is Career Delight, because I also believe most people are out there working in the wrong job. I found this throughout placement into my corporate training career. And so I want to do that for the third act, but also for just people who there's assessments and things that we have to do so that we don't spend half our lives at a job we hate, which is what I'm seeing almost every day.
Right.
So, and I never did, because if it didn't fit me, I took the lumps, but I didn't stay in it. So I can definitely share that with a passion, and that's one of my passions. And the other is something called treasure bound. Like, we're bound for treasure. We've got to keep on that journey, finding whatever that means for you, whether it's money, whether it's health, whether it's that treasure that everyone has. Discover what it is and go after it, even in the third act. And I should say, especially in the third act.
Yeah, absolutely. So has moving to Ecuador helped you with getting clarity on these things and with just kind of getting more in tune and more in touch with how you want to define these different avenues that you're pursuing and what you're basically, because it sounds like you have a very clear understanding, and so I guess I'm wondering, is has Ecuador given you that space to really tap into that?
So yes, and the reason for that is that my experience when I was here last with the Covey Leadership Center is that this is a very manageable market as opposed to the United States, where it's unmanageable and huge. And this, so I can test what I'm doing here much easier than I could there. So that was always the thought that I had from that previous experience. And I'm in Salinas, very, very manageable market,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm putting the word out there, and the reaction has been phenomenal. I mean, I really have been getting people to listen very informally. I love to talk to people about what I want to do and get their reaction. And so we meet someone in a restaurant and start talking about it, and the reactions have all been very positive.
Yeah.
Which does not happen in a larger market. It just wouldn't be that easy to get in front of people. And
Right. Yeah, and to even get maybe even genuine feedback too, because
exactly.
People are just so hustle and bustle and focused on themselves that yeah, I get it. That's
great. That's the right phrase. I am getting genuine feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm looking for.
So when it comes to transitioning back into Ecuador, since you had so many years away, were there any challenges that you came across with just kind of acclimating and getting back into the groove? Because there's while there's a lot of modern conveniences and there's a lot of the same things, clearly same currency, those kind of things, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But I mean, I know how there can be a lot of just stark differences, and so I'm curious to hear what kind of things have maybe been a little bit of a challenge for you to adapt to.
So the cultural differences that I see, for instance, I made a choice not to drive anywhere in Ecuador because I drove in California, where everything is exactly as is. So I made a choice not to do that, and so that's one of the things that's difficult to get used to, even when I'm not driving, to be in the kind of driving that happens here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the issues. The reliability issue is also something. It's very laid back. I'll see if I can make it. There's no such thing as making an appointment with someone around 4-ish, or and I'm used to 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. or 10 a.m. and this is when we meet.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing.
That makes sense. Let's back up for just a second too on the driving, because there's probably a lot of people that don't understand exactly what you're referring to. I do because I've ridden in the car several times in Ecuador, and so I know even if it's not a taxi driver, just your friends and the family can be,
Yes,
they're driving these, they could be driving big SUVs and they act like they're race cars, and
yes.
there's really not the same respect for the roads and for the traffic the way there is here, that we're accustomed to in the States. So I just wanted to kind of mention that if people were wondering, what you were referring to when you mentioned that. But it's not it's not that you're just saying, oh, I'm just not comfortable riding in other people's cars or not having a car. I
No,
understand exactly what you're saying. The way people drive down there is with a recklessness that's scary. And
it's totally scary. I
yeah,
mean, they're the most aggressive drivers. They're excellent drivers because we have really relatively few accidents
yeah,
considering what we've done. But you would see in Guayaquil a two-lane street become four lanes in a matter of seconds. And so I know that I could never do that, and I'd be the person they'd be honking at, get out of the way, get out of the way, because I need to get in there. And the
yeah,
honking and the noise, and it's a road between Guayaquil and the roads all over the country have improved tremendously. So freeway driving is much better than I've ever seen it. It's almost like driving on a freeway, seriously, in the United States. But on the streets in any given city, it is not fun. It
yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah.
You're right. And the roads, to your point too, the roads. I can't I can't really describe how impressed I am with the
Yes,
quality of the roads. Just in the last few years, the way that the government has really cleaned up the roads down there. It's been really impressive. Um, so
it's kind of impressive to see that there was a strategy to build the infrastructure for the tourism and the expats. I don't know if that was thought out or it just happened, but it seems to me that,
yeah,
the
well, it
effect of
is it is nice seeing seeing the investment and seeing
yeah.
how it's all kind of come together, and it is pretty impressive. Um, so I think that's great. Do you so okay, so you mentioned the traffic. You also mentioned, as far as people saying, being punctual, those kind of things, which I understand. I think it's like that in general in Ecuador. It's probably even more so like that on the coast. I would
Yes,
imagine the coast is probably worse than, Quito.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Quito's actually, yeah, a lot of global organizations in Quito, so it's a different model. It's completely different in that sense.
yeah.
Still
So
have a long way to go, but it's much.
so what is there anything else that really kind of sticks out at you?
Yeah, again, so those are the two things that I can think of that I need to adjust to, but I find that so easy to do as in comparison to all the positives that I see here. I mean, these are wonderful people.
Yep.
I think and what excites me is there's a canvas there for any type of training, any type of new initiative will make the change happen very quickly because they're anxious, they're avid. I mean, there's for knowledge and for new thinking, and
Yeah.
so
Well, I think that's a good point too. What you mentioned as far as, those are things that you'll just have to get used to, and that'll probably come fairly easy. The way I kind of relate to that is that, I think that every country has something great to offer, and every country is going to have something bad to offer as well,
yes,
including the United States. And so you have to kind of prioritize, like, okay, what are the things that are most important to me? What really matters? What doesn't? And it's a little disappointing for me when I hear expats move abroad and they will complain about something like, the traffic, not in a sense of, man, this traffic's crazy, but it's like, I got to get out of here because I can't handle this. This is
yes.
just crazy. It's like, well, there's going to be pros and there's going to be cons. So if you can't handle it, then that's fine. Just reprioritize and understand what's, really important to you and what's not. Um, so I agree. I think that that's, one of the things you just kind of go, and I'm glad we're talking about it because I
Yes,
want people to understand that, the traffic and the driving can be crazy. So just be prepared for it. It's something you're going to have to be patient with as you make that transition. So when it came from transitioning from the United States to Ecuador, did you have a lot of stuff that you brought down with you? Did you sell everything? What was that like for you?
I came down with just the basics, and not because I'm thinking of moving back, but because I want to figure out where it is that I will be. It could be Quito, it could be Cuenca, and I'm going to give myself a whole 2 years to do this. So, and I have some time before I have to bring my things. I also want very much to buy as much locally as I possibly can.
Hmm.
Because that's important to me. Including clothes. I'm going out and buying clothes here and shoes. And we're making appliances and we're making all sorts of things. So to me, it's important to buy locally. So I'm not really intending to bring a lot. I'm not even bringing a car. I'm not, none of my expat, none of the things that I'm able to entitled to.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you're entitled, aren't you,
yes,
to bring the container without the taxes and all that?
that's tax.
Yeah.
I am, and but I haven't really given that much thought because that was never my intention. I really want to. When I lived here the last time, I bought all my furniture here, and it's yeah. I was born here, so that I have a vested interest in whatever. Um, I want to be an example of we don't need to have everything come from other places. We've
Yeah.
got plenty here. This government is trying to stimulate local production, and I'm all on board with that.
Yeah,
I
I
think
am too. I think
it creates jobs, it changes lives. I mean,
yeah,
so
I think that's great. And I want to just kind of explain a little bit for anybody that heard what we were just talking about with the container. Because you are originally from Ecuador, you can move back to Ecuador and you can bring a container and you don't have the taxes. You can also include a vehicle in there, one vehicle. There's restrictions on the weight and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But that's and I'm sure I've got some of the details wrong, but that is something that you qualify for because you are from Ecuador.
yes.
Now,
Returning Ecuadorian, yes,
right. So for anybody that's an American going down there, you don't have the same circumstances as Rebecca, so I just wanted to kind of clarify that for anybody that
good.
might have heard that and wondered what that was. Um, so so you were saying that essentially you basically came down with the bare minimum, and you want to just kind of start fresh and be able to give back to the basically try to consume from Ecuador opposed to
Yes,
just bringing everything in.
yes.
That's good. That's very good.
Yes.
So with your transition, has there been anything emotionally tough about it, or has it been a fairly smooth process?
I mean, with technology, the fact that I'm able to be face to face or on the phone with my son as often as I need to, and WhatsApp and all these ways to communicate, which is usually the emotional part is leaving those people that you leave behind.
Hmm.
My family travels here often, and so and I have a large family here. So it's really, for me, it has been a very smooth transition.
That's great. Now, one of the things that I talk about a lot is housing. So when it came to the housing, are you renting? What did you purchase? What does that look like for you?
For me, I am currently staying in an apartment that belongs to my one of my cousins.
Oh, good.
And
Okay.
that's I am planning to rent, and we are looking as a family in the United States to invest on the coast somewhere. And so while I'm here, I'll be overseeing the building of the thing. Most of them have a few years left before they retire. So there's three of us, two sisters and my brother, and we're all planning to retire here.
Oh, that's
It,
great.
so there is an investment in the work, because that's something that I've got to give some time to at some point
Yeah.
and try to look for something.
That's good. And I would like to point out too, also for anybody that's first learning about Salinas through this interview. Salinas, when you compare it to other cities like Bahia on the coast, or Manta, I would say if you were to compare it to those two cities from a real estate perspective, Salinas is still probably the cheapest of the three. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It is the prices, the property prices have gone up a little, but not to the degree that they're saying it has. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's still it's still an amazing opportunity to own beachfront property that is almost impossible in the United States or Canada. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I should mention, I didn't mention this to you before our interview, but my wife actually has a cousin in Salinas.
oh, nice.
So yeah, maybe we can talk about that offline as well. But she's in Salinas. She lived well, probably half of her life or more here in the States, and she went around basically Uruguay, Ecuador. I don't know where, but she chose Salinas out of all the places, and she's been down there now for several years and absolutely loves it. But the one thing too is that, I mean, she was able to build a house down there
Yes.
on the coast for just pennies on the dollar compared to here. So it seems like it's a good opportunity. Now, on my last trip to Ecuador, I almost went to Salinas, and because of time and everything, we opted not to go. And I'm still kicking myself just because I would have liked to have seen it and experienced it. From what I understand, as we mentioned earlier, it is pretty much the vacation spot for the people from
Yes.
Guayaquil. So you do get you've got seasons essentially when a lot of local Ecuadorians are going to come in and vacation there, and then they leave. So tourism is a big part of Salinas' economy.
Yes.
So and that's pretty much. And then, like I said, the real estate's going to be cheaper than some of the other, cities with an infrastructure on the coast. So can you maybe expand on that for us and tell us more about Salinas and just kind of paint a picture for people on what Salinas is like?
It's actually become a year-round resort in terms of from the schools let out go back in Guayaquil in May, so the seasons for people from Guayaquil will end next week basically, or soon after in May. But then the schools in Quito and in La Sierra let out at a different time, so there's two different school cycles, which makes it a vacation spot for people from Quito, Cuenca, and Bato.
Okay.
So it's actually become a year-round resort,
Mm-hmm.
which is very nice.
Yeah, that is nice. What about? Can you tell us a little bit about shopping? Just what is a typical day like in Salinas, or if you were to walk around the streets of Salinas, what would you experience?
There are, because of the expat community, there is now a selection of restaurants that was never here before. It's foods from everywhere in the world. Most of them owned by Americans or Canadians, but some of them owned by Ecuadorians as well. And there are actual large supermarkets. I mean, I was here 15 years ago. We didn't have a supermarket in Salinas. Now we have two. We have, there's a shopping center in Libertad, which is 10 minutes away, with all of the major shopping that you find in Guayaquil and Quito. So it's become very easy to live here.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember when we used to come out here in the 60s or the 50s, we used to load up the car with everything. You couldn't buy anything here. So
Right.
you had to load up food and mattresses and whatever.
Wow. So it's pretty much got everything now.
Get everything. Good services, water, electricity is extremely reliable. So yes, I'm extremely impressed.
And now, when you're in Salinas, you're essentially on a small little peninsula, aren't you? If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. And so you're kind of closed in once you get there. And then, aren't there other small little towns that are smaller, maybe on the surroundings, or that you may pass in on the way in?
There is, I think that's probably the main tourist attraction in Ecuador right now. It's called the Ruta del Sol. So everything that when I was a child was totally nothing but beaches and no housing. And there's between here and Puerto Lopez, even all the way to Bahia, there's different cities, different developments coming up every single day. There's Montañita, of course, everybody knows about Montañita, Olón. Then you drive up the coast to places like Puerto Lopez, which is already in Manaví, Ayampe, beautiful developments. Some of them are just starting, some of them have already developed. When I left here 15 years ago, there were maybe 15 houses in Olón. Now it's a full city. It's, yeah.
Wow.
Impressive, yeah.
I've not been to Puerto Lopez, and I've not interviewed anybody in Puerto Lopez, but from the photos I've seen of it, it looks gorgeous. Would you agree that it's a...
Yes. The entire coast. Yeah, the entire coast. Like I said, the Ruta del Sol trip takes you all along the coast, and I've only been up as far as Ayampe, which is the beginning of Manaví. So I never even made it to Caracas, Bahia de Caracas this time, but I was there before. But it's amazing views, and it's something. The weekends it takes. You actually see traffic on that route because people are coming from all over the country and all over the world.
Yeah.
To make that trip, it's one of the
So, so what I just heard is if you plan to do that trip, do it on a weekday. Is that right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we do. That's what we do. We try to do it we're looking for land. So when we've done it on the weekdays. weekday.
Yeah.
But of course, even the weekdays are, it's extremely popular trip,
Wow.
which
Okay.
makes all the difference again in terms of jobs and creation of so many small hotels and osterias and that just weren't even heard of before
Yeah.
that have popped up because of that. So
So, I guess one of the big things I'd like to learn about is how has your life changed since moving back to Ecuador from the States?
oh, let me count the ways. So as much as I love what I do, it's I don't miss getting up at 3 in the morning to show up at a workshop at 5 or 6 and drive 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get back home. And not because it's 2 hour drive, but because the traffic takes me 2 hours almost anywhere in Southern California. Um, it's I feel, and this is such a cliche, but I think it's true. It's just very laid back. It's just people are laid back. I don't find many stressed people that are stressed out. And I think over the last 20 years, I've noticed that difference in the United States,
Hmm.
where it's not the quality of life that I remember in the 60s for certain. And I think we've all seen that change. Well, you haven't because you weren't around in the 60s. Most of us who have actually seen that it's still a great place to live, and I have my heart in 2 different countries, and that'll never change. But I have to say, I don't see any stressed out people. You will in Guayaquil,
Right.
but here in Salinas, it's a completely different story. I think people choose it for that reason. If you don't want to live a stressful life, then walk anywhere you want to. You don't need to get on in a taxi. You can just go shopping, just exercise, walk. You have a beach right in front of you. Sunsets and sunrises are the most spectacular things I've ever seen. The colors change. So how can you go wrong?
Yeah.
And it's, yeah.
That's really good. So it's funny because it's like when I went to um, Bahia, I noticed that too. That people just you're not there's no such thing as stress there. There really there really isn't. Uh, so that's something I would imagine it's very similar in Salinas in that aspect. What about what about like things like medical facilities, um, crime? Let's talk about those kind of things for a moment.
So, as far as I'm concerned, I know it's a concern all over Ecuador. Apparently, very little of it happens here. I have heard very few incidents. I love the way the expats are teaching each other how to handle these situations. When people, there are few pages that are published for expats, and so they'll tell them, okay, make sure that you bring 2 debit cards, whatever, because you may lose one of them. So they're warning each other about those things. But I have not seen anything, nor have I heard of anything happening here. Very high crime rates in big cities.
Hmm.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
That is a reality. Hopefully getting better. But if you are in a place like Salinas, the Cuenca has an expat page, and it's also very quiet. It's also quieter than the bigger cities. I think most of it is either in the very poor towns or in the Quito and Guayaquil. That's
yeah,
what it seems to be for the most part.
yeah. That's you bring up a good point, and a lot of the expats that I talk to bring this up too, as far as the Facebook pages. I think they're a huge, valuable
Oh,
resource for anybody that's going to be making a move down there because you get relevant information in a very
yes.
quick and so it's a lot of fantastic little tips that you're able to pick up on very quick and very detailed too, which
Very deep. That
is
people are willing to share their experiences, and there's a lot of variety, so you can pick and choose who you are and what best fits you from different people, from the way we all take things in a different way. So it's really interesting. My Facebook page has never been this crowded as it has been since I joined these pages, and there are threads that go 50,
yeah,
50 messages deep on one topic,
yeah.
but it's very specific, and so it's very helpful. Like I said, you get a lot of insight from, and then you choose.
Yeah, and to your point too, you get contrasting
Yes,
opinions too on the same topic, which is interesting because it gives you multiple perspectives. So I highly encourage people to check those out as well. What about medical? Have you had to deal with medical facilities at all yet in Salinas?
I haven't, and that's actually the reason I stay healthy. But I did have this weekend. One of my nephews who was staying in Ayante, dislocated his shoulder. So Salinas is the closest. place where he could get some help. And I went with him to a hospital in Santa Elena that I was totally impressed with. This hospital has awards from, and I can't quote them because I haven't really taken the time to find out, but I immediately went online to find out about it. It's fairly new. It's a public hospital,
Mm-hmm.
so completely free, and just all the facilities, all the equipment that I saw, the building itself, very impressive. And there are a couple of private clinics in Salinas that I checked into just in case of an emergency, a fall or whatever. And so that seems to be not an issue. Most of the expats are using the hospital in Santa Elena.
Oh, okay.
Just for
Gotcha.
emergency, that's where they go.
Yeah, good. Okay. What about, I guess, so, and I know we got to start wrapping up here in a little bit. So I wanted to ask, what would you, for any friends or family that were thinking about making a move to Salinas, or even to Ecuador or abroad in general, from your experience, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd like to share with them?
To like what I mentioned before, do your research. There's so much available right now so that you make sure that it's for you. Most of the expats I've noticed take a trip. They come here 6 weeks. They go through two or three different places. Again, I'm learning all this from those pages, and then they choose where they want to live. And I think that's the way to go. I've also heard the horror stories of people who bought their homes and before they moved here, etc. And then when they get to the place, it is not what they expect. The town isn't, nor is the apartment, nor is the building, etc. So do your research. Make sure that you check things out yourself
Yep.
every step of the way, especially when you're buying property. And that would be it. I mean, other than that, this is an amazing place to be.
Yeah, well, that's one of the biggest things that I tell people. Actually, that's the most important thing I try to stress to people is do not buy when you first go down there or prior to going down there. You need to rent first. You need to really make
Right.
sure that it's something that you're happy with, that, not just the home, more so than the home. I'm concerned about the actual town, the city that you're going to be in, and the country too, because
Absolutely.
you could take just a fantastic experience, or what could be a fantastic experience, and it could end up being your biggest nightmare just because maybe it's the wrong location or the wrong country. But by you renting first, it gives you the opportunity and the flexibility to then go and try other places. So
Exactly, and that's what I'm seeing most of them do. Is those who haven't are those who have had some kind of an issue, and it's just inevitable. I mean that how do you buy property from 3,000 miles away
yeah,
without having some sort of something go wrong? But as far as everything else, I think that would be the best thing to do. Just do a lot of research, not only on the real estate and all of that, but also on the country and the growth and what's happening in the laws and the expat laws. There's a lot of, again, these pages are great, but they're also very misleading sometimes because people will quote things that aren't true. So before any information, check it out. There are plenty of places. Ecuador, the Ministerio de Turismo in Ecuador is doing a great job of publishing all of the information in English so that people can check it out for themselves. Because then you have two sources of information: the expats that are here, and then you go check it out get to know what's really going on.
yeah,
Uh,
that's
yeah.
really good. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, let me ask you then, so we can go ahead and wrap things up. But for anybody that wants to maybe talk to you about your services regarding Spanish lessons or anything like that, do you have an email address or something you'd like to share with people so that they can get a hold of you? Um, Also, just regarding the career, opportunities that you've got going as well. Uh, Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. So I went to a meeting. This is so funny. I've been here 5 months. So this meeting that I went to in Vallenita, somebody introduced me and they say, "Oh, you're the famous Rebecca." So just ask the famous Rebecca in Salinas. So I'm kidding. I'm kidding. artsalemoassociates@gmail.com is my email address.
Okay.
And I'm open to inquiries of any sort. If I can help anyone make a right decision about Ecuador, like I said, I think more than the other expats, I'm from here, so I'm also able to access the information from the right places, and I'd be happy to do that um, for anyone that needs it and will help them make a better decision. That's
Great.
not the business I'm in. I mean, my business is training. This is something I would just simply do to help someone make a good decision.
Awesome. So let's repeat that one more time, just in case it was R Salem. Associates.
associates@gmail.com.
Perfect. Okay. So, yeah, if you're in Salinas and you end up needing some help with Spanish or coaching and all that, reach out to Rebecca. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come onto the show today, and I really appreciate it. And I know that you've been able to give people just some really good information on